Alright, we will begin here in just a few minutes. I need to go set up everything else up. Be right back. Honestly, for a small iPad setup, there's a lot I have going on here. I don't really have a way of showing you, but to paint a picture, I have this iPad currently going with an Apple Pencil attached to it. There is a second one that I use as an extra monitor, and I got my phone on me just to keep an eye on everything else. The wonders of streaming. It's not as simple as it looks. I mean, once you get started, it's pretty easy. Alright, so, you see the title. I got an OC Animatic I need to work on, and I've been putting it off for a couple weeks now, and I think we should talk about it. You might remember it. I've brought it up a couple times, both through my social media extensions on Blue Sky, as well as on here. And it would be this one, with the blue and gold color palette. I believe, if I remember the name of the song correctly, it was AJR's Yes, I'm a Mess. And this is the animatic that we are currently working on today. Now, real quick, why haven't I touched this animatic in a while? Well, it's kind of a lengthy story. For starters, I have just been kind of out of practice when it came to drawing. Part of me no longer had a big desire to work on this project, and the other half of me wanted to just enjoy the project for what it is rather than try and force... It's a good way to try and force myself to work on it. Now, please excuse my photos. I'm working on multiple projects at once, because that's another thing. I procrastinate a lot. But when I procrastinate, it's not like I'm taking a break. No, I draw all the time. Okay, yeah, his expressions are different in the last one, so number 5 will be a different frame entirely. But yeah, you could say it's the beginning of burnout. I'm starting to accept that. I think it's becoming more apparent every day. But you know, that's why I just want to sit down and actually work on it. Not to force myself. I don't think I'm forcing myself to work on it. It's just... I want to enjoy it. That's a good way of putting it. I just want to enjoy it, and I figured I have a lot of fun working on this stuff during stream, so we'll try that. Speaking of the love of creation, I think we need to talk a little bit also about Make Your Comic Today. If you don't know what that is a series I've had on the channel for a while, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it. Now, I won't go into a bunch of details. There will be an update later down the line. But I'm thinking about moving it to a different channel. And I know that's not really what the stream's about. I'm not going to take up all the time talking about it, but it's just not really feeling like something I want to add onto the main, which is what we're on right now with art and storytelling. And while it kind of fits into the medium, it's just not feeling it. Probably the burnout. I think I just need to take a well-deserved break from the constant editing. And then maybe we'll see how I feel about it later. No, so this frame of clay is so close to the other one. Let me take a look at it. This is number 4. This is number 5. I guess his eyes are looking up. Yeah, they're kind of looking up now. Oh, that does remind me. I did mention on my community post today. Well, no, it was community post yesterday. Yeah, yesterday's community post that if anyone has any questions about, say, the Ivar villain cast that we've seen, feel free to ask. I might blab a little bit about the characters today, but you know what? I think that's okay. I think it's okay to love a story so much that all you want to do is talk about them. Just, be careful who you're talking to about it, because not everybody's going to want to listen to your rambles of your OCs. I always enjoy a good ramble about an OC. But maybe that's an artist thing. Maybe we just enjoy seeing people obsessed with their own characters and vice versa being obsessed with ours. But yeah, the recent addition to the villain showcase was King. Yeah, King. King the Rhino Beetle. He's not the last villain per se, but we probably only have 1 or 2 left to showcase in Ivar. And while this is not at all the end of the creation of all these villains, because if you've seen the group photo, which I think I posted it on somewhere, I don't remember where, probably somewhere in the community tab if you scroll down far enough. But yeah, there's way more than the few I've shared, but this is the early stages of Ivar. It's planning, it's creation, it's writing, and really just taking the baby steps into the world that I've been waiting a really long time to create. And of course, allowing people to have the time to take in the world. Part of this comes with the disadvantage of not being able to talk about all the villains at the same time. Because some of them are not really going to be relevant until way later. And that's if I get the opportunity to actually talk about them. I think it's important when we have stories to be a little bit flexible. Because at the end of the day, what we create is what we love. However, there's also a limitation to what we create depending on you. Like, for instance, I'm a single person making this comic and working on these animations. Actually, I'm going to erase that. But yeah, I'm the only person working on this stuff. And while I enjoy every second of it, it does limit to me to how many Ivar adventures I can make in a single setting. That's one reason why I turned to the mini comics again, is I think they're a fun, easier way to explore the dynamic of the characters, while also not entirely devoting my time to fully colored comics. Okay, we need to draw the door. Yeah, we'll get the drawing tool out. I think it'll make it easier. So yeah, don't be afraid to create and be ambitious about it. Just know that at the end of the day, you are still a human. We have our limits and we have our strengths, but we also have, creativity. I find that it's a balance between having the freedom to create, but also the wisdom and understanding to be responsible of what we create. Because you can create literally anything you want as an artist. But at the same time, you are just one person. Unless, you have a team. If you have a friend group or a bunch of people that want to help you, that is amazing, and I'm happy for you. Yeah, but Ivar is my personal project. Something I like to put the time to and to work on. Okay, we're just going to leave the door like that. I think that's good enough. Let's check the motion. The door kind of swings shut. I don't really want that. Maybe we could copy the door from the previous frame. Excuse me, apologizing for the flashing. I have to go back and detach the door. There we go. I think we'll just copy this frame and see if it looks better. Yeah, that looks better. We'll just go with this. This will be frame number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh yes, we get to move to the fun frames now when he actually begins moving. These are honestly some of the ugliest pieces of animation. Not because I think the animation is bad, but just because people don't see these frames often, the bendy, twisty lines of a character in motion. We're typically used to seeing the stationary or well-detailed pictures of a character. There's only so much the human eye can catch, and one of those is it doesn't really capture all the emotions, or rather, all the motions of someone moving. There we go. I've changed Clay's design a little bit. I don't know if that's going to translate into the animatic, but it's not anything major. Like, I haven't changed his hairstyle, or I haven't changed anything about the overall shape. It actually has more to do with his eyebrows. I may have brought this up, but I'm just going to talk about it anyway. Something I really didn't care for in Clay's early design was how much he looked like Alistair. Because he and Alistair are meant to be polar opposites. Alistair is somebody who sees the world with the glass half empty, and Clay is someone who sees the world with the glass half full. But when it came to their actual appearances, it was during the early stages of its creation, when I was still learning how to draw both humans as well as my own original characters. Humans are not easy to draw. They're up there with some of the hardest things to draw, despite the fact there's so many people out there who can do it. Is his hand in a fist, or... I think we'll make it a partial fist. There we go, kind of a bendy fist. That might look weird, but trust, it's an animation frame. They're meant to look kind of stretchy. But yeah, humans are hard to draw, and one of the biggest hinders in Clay's design at the time was the idea is that I only had so many versions of an eyebrow that I would give a character. Let's draw an eye, for example. I would either do a line, which is I usually just do in between frames, and it's not that important. But if I'm doing a detailed picture, it would sometimes end up looking like that, where it's more of like a triangle wedge shape. Well, fast forward now to modern day Ivar 3 years later. I couldn't help but notice that Clay was still being drawn with this eyebrow, while Alistair was also being drawn with this eyebrow. So if you looked close enough at their pictures, you would notice how similar the eyes were, and it just did not look good. I couldn't have them in the same room without getting the two faces confused, despite the fact that everything else was different. So I decided to swap them to not exactly a square. If I had to describe the shape, you draw it like a box first, and do like a diagonal line at the end. And it's not this one, it's thicker. So it kind of gives it off this more of a framed look, maybe? Oh my goodness, look at his knee. Man's taking that right turn way too sharp. We got some motion lines. I don't know if I'll keep these, but I will draw them in just to see if they are needed at the end. No, I think they need to be sharper. There we go. Okay, I think for the rest of the shot, we're just going to save a copy of this door. Because I don't think it moves again. I think it's meant to stay wide open, because Clay just burst through the door. So we'll copy this frame and make a new one below it, so that Clay can still go past the door. Okay, so it looks like those motion lines on his arm are just not gonna matter. He's too close to the door. But where was I? Oh yeah, changing character design. I think it's kind of interesting and a little sweet and poetic, maybe, to watch a character's design shift over the course of the artist's life. Not only does it just showcase the amount of time and effort that was put into the character for all these years, but it also shows the progression in the way that they actually draw in general. Okay, this is 7. Oh man, he really did take that right turn sharp. But I need to reach over and get this real quick. The devices again, man. There's so many devices just sitting here. It's like having 3 screens just to keep an eye on one stream. I think something else that changed on Clay was probably his hair. It would be more of a gradual shift. I don't think it's been anything too obvious. But I couldn't help but notice that it looks more fluffy. Which actually brings me to a really good point. Does anybody else have this issue? Where you draw a character with, let's say, this hairstyle, like what I'm trying to give Clay right now. Or maybe some ponytails or long locks. Does anyone have the issue of it just starting to grow? I thought it was just me, but then I noticed other artists had the same issue with their characters. Fan art or not, just characters with long growing hair. Or sometimes a tail. In Clay's case, I couldn't help but notice that his hair in the back of his head went from looking like a very cheap 3 tufts of hair to something that looks more like this now, where it's long and wavy. And I don't think this was me intentionally changing the design. That's the crazy thing. I think the character design itself just slowly shifted as I got more comfortable with it. But yeah, I would be curious to know if anybody else has that issue, because it's just so weird. It's not every character, too, because, I mean, Alistair's wings aren't getting bigger. Or his, well, I guess the feathery ears probably got a little longer. But again, it's just another appendage on the head. Like ponytails, or even, I guess, ears now. Like feathery ears or furry ears. Like, do they just get longer? Should I be concerned that they're getting longer? Does Clay need a haircut? Okay, there's no motion line on this shot, so I'm just going to assume that it gets the motion across without it. I mean, I can always add it. I'm on the line art stage. I can pretty much just add on to a frame if I don't like it. Like these shoes. I'm not even adding the details of the shoes yet. I'm going to leave myself a lot of detail in the sketch, which, you know, that's fair. Sketches aren't meant to be super detailed. They're meant to be loose and rough. It's just to get a feel for motion, not necessarily clean them up. Now, some people do come back and clean up sketches. I'm not one of those people. I just kind of leave them really rough and hope for the best. I do think Clay's hand's a bit big. I think I'm going to fix that while we're here. Now, I do have to be more careful here. In my first discussion about this same scene, funny enough, I said that I don't have to care so much about proportions because I'm sketching. This is line art. Line art, you need to be a bit more careful about the size and shape of the character to make sure it's consistent with what he was previously. He might look a bit weird here, but we're just gonna hold off on changing anything until I see the next frame. Because you don't know, maybe the next frame he needs to move closer to the camera, so therefore I can allow him to change, what's the word? Change the shape, like maybe his head does need to be bigger. We'll erase the door though in his hair. There we go, now I can see it better. It's frame number 7. Time to move on to frame number 8. I don't know if I'll finish this here. It's kind of my goal. Oh wow, now he's really taking a big leap. Yeah, it's my goal to finish this animation, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. Line art is a pricey art when it comes to time. At least for me. I find it relaxing in a way, because I don't have to think as much as I did when I had to come up with the motion of him running. Like, say, for the sketches. But at the same time, I can also find it being very stressful. Because I want to make sure that my proportions are correct, as well as making sure that I'm not losing any of the emotions by sacrificing for detail. Because you see, Clay is now entering that phase in the run cycle where you're going to see more of these frames than you would originally with him leaving the door. He's also got his mouth open here. Like, when did his mouth open? Stuff like this is what you have to pay attention to in animation. You don't have to, I guess is a better way of wording it. You don't have to, but it does pay off in the long run when people go back and see that, oh, I can see the transition of his mouth going from a smile to more of a nervous sneer. And people appreciate those details. Not everyone, though, because, you know, some people don't care so much for animation, but I do. I think other animators and creators will enjoy and appreciate the tiny details you put in, even if they don't say anything. I always look for those small, sweet little details when I'm working on a project. Sometimes I'll watch an animation over a couple times, just to see if I can catch something new about the story, or even about the artwork. Okay, see, well, this is what I was getting at about proportions. Look how different his two hand sizes are here. We need to fix this before moving on to the next piece. We'll start with this hand, as I feel like it's the more accurate one. I'm going to slowly beef it up, as Clay does not have skinny arms. And then we're going to add our little folds for his shirt. Because he does have like a little bit of a rolled up sleeve. I think that's the look this was going for. And now time to draw his hand and a fist. There we go. See, now it looks closer to the size of the other one. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to downsize. Now let's take the line art, or rather the sketch off, and see how it looks. Honestly, I will take that. That looks a lot nicer. Do you need to fix this though? Yeah, there we go. Make it look more like it's part of the sleeve. Oh, I just remembered. Speaking of Ivar as a whole, like the comic series as well as the new extensions, I had just tracked down the original story of Ivar, like what it came from originally. It was a mini short. I've mentioned it once or twice about trying to find it and tracking it down, and I did finally come across the original, the very first thing I ever wrote. It is horribly written, but it was so fun going through it, and I just got the funniest idea of how I can share that with you. Now, if it's something that we're genuinely interested in, I will put up a poll and you can comment here or whatever. I want it to be a special, like maybe some subs goal. I haven't decided a number yet, but if we can reach a certain count of likes, subscribers, or even views, or whatever, if we can reach a certain goal, I think I want to turn the original story into like a picture audiobook. Now, I don't know how that's going to work yet. I've never made one of those, but I'm willing to learn because it is so funny not only to hear the old design of the character, but have it alongside something that's of current day. Kind of like meeting the old, meeting the new. Yeah, don't know when that will be though, because like I said, I need to decide on a goal. Because it would be a lot of time being put into something, though I'm very excited to make it. But it also would be an emotional sacrifice on my end of having to share something really old. Like really old. I'm not even joking, this writing is really, really cringeworthy, I think is a good word. It's sad. Also, I think it's strange how different the characters sounded. Clay was not at all the proud, wannabe hero he is currently. I mean, there's part of him that still carries that energy in the original writing. Whoa, his legs got long. Excuse me. But there's part of him that still carries that energy. But he's almost kind of flat in the original writing. More two-dimensional, stereotypical type hero. Just good versus evil. He's the good guy. It's pretty obvious. And while that's okay, I guess, for the time frame that this episode took place in, it just, not really Clay. He's changed a lot since then, and one of the biggest things being is that he's a little arrogant, you could say. He's even stubborn. He also has a giant ego, but that's something entirely that we could talk about for hours. Or, you know, better yet, read the comics. I do hope to actually have the comics on a easier to access website. Maybe like Comic Fury or something. Because while it's fun having them over on Blue Sky, they're not the easiest to find if you wanted to read all of them together. Especially considering that I have multiple posts in a week. So I think we'll probably look on getting its own personalized website so that we could actually read all the comics in one spot. I don't know what this means for the original story special. Whether or not it will join them on that, or who knows. I'll see what it looks like. I might add maybe some storyboard-like dialogue so that it can go there, so therefore you can still read it. But we'll see. No, what's that? Oh. My dog was in here. I didn't even see him. He's just too quiet these days. I mean, it's not even funny. Quick story time. My dog is a miniature Australian Shepherd. And he is the cleverest, smartest, evil little creature. He's super sweet, but there's one thing he's not allowed to do in this house. And that is he is not allowed to go into our cat's room. Because we have a bunch of cats, and we don't want him, obviously, going in there and messing with all their stuff and chewing stuff and all that fun stuff. I said stuff a lot in that sentence. But yeah, he's not allowed to go in there. And usually we're pretty good at catching him. I always find him making his way into the room and I can just shoo him out. And that'll be the end of that. And before anyone asks why can't I just use a cat door? He's about the size of a cat, so first of all, it wouldn't work. Secondly, there is a 19-year-old cat in this house, and she will not go through doors, jump fences, or anything like that. She's stubborn and stuck in her old ways. So, there's none of that. I forgot the door on the other sections. Hold on. We need to add the door. But yeah, I'm usually pretty good at catching them. Well, the other day, my dog snuck through the bedroom to the cat's room without making a single noise, which is very unusual. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if he's, like, learned black magic, but like dark magic, I have no idea, but he's figured out how to get in there. And now it's just a battle of keeping him out of the room, while also accommodating our older cat's needs. So yeah, that's been mostly my week. Hopefully yours has been less anticlimactic and compared to mine. Okay, he's finally leaving the door behind. I can stop having to edit this door so much. Hopefully. Now, he's missing his foot here in the last panel, but that's actually intentional. What we can't see here on this canvas is that there is a second foreground piece, which just means a piece of the background that sits in front of our character. You can see where this paint is missing right here. It's where it's supposed to be. It's meant to be like a table and a thing of napkins with salt and pepper. He will be behind that, so I'm not too worried about forgetting parts of the body, like his foot. Or his torso here in a second. There we go. Look at his chin in that picture. Now, alongside that original Ivar short, I also came across a few others. One was Mermaid's original concept. Now, for those who are new here or don't know, Mermaid is one of the Ivar villains that were showcased in our villain lineup, as well as one of my personal favorites. Perhaps not as my favorite as, say, Robodad. I do really enjoy Robodad. But she is still a rather fun character to play and is actually currently in a video of mine. But yeah, I found Mermaid's old short. I found the one I just mentioned of the very first Ivar origin. I don't really remember what the third one was. I think it was meant to be like Western themed, which I have no idea where that story came from, like complete left field, but I think there was a Western themed short. There was, of course, Matthew's Marvelous Wonders, which were the original concept behind Matthew. He was a very different person then. Not quite as fun as he is now as a character. I actually wouldn't get a good portion of the villains until the comic era, where I kind of abandoned the concept of writing the story and instead devoted my time to learn to draw the story. But you know, that's just what worked for me. You can pretty much make a story any way you want, whether it be through art, writing, or even storytelling through music. I mean, that's kind of what Broadway is. I just found that art worked for me for two reasons. One, I like to consider myself not a pro by any means, but, you know, decent enough to make art. Though that's not to say you can't make a comic. You can make a comic even if you don't know how to draw. They're actually quite easy to make. Just put a character of any style on a canvas and put a text bubble over them. That's a comic. But yeah, I felt like I was at a level in my own personal work where I could actually bring Ivar as a character as well as his world to life. I think that's a good way of looking at it. You don't need to be a professional to make comics, but sometimes we don't want to create a story that we envision right away. Especially if you're still learning to draw the characters. I mean, I didn't even touch Ivar as a concept until I had a better understanding of humans. Most of the time, I just kind of doodled him on a piece of paper. Just so I could get a practice in for the character. Look at those tiny legs. Hopefully that gets fixed here in a second. Once I add the piece in the background. If not, I'll come back and fix it. Okay, we're actually almost to the end of this scene. Which, you know, hooray, that means the line art will be done. Unfortunately, that also means a bunch of cleanup work. Like making sure all our lines are correct, that there's not any missing detail. What can I add before the color? I don't really need color in the animatic. I just really like the way it looks. It's like a labor of love. Just because it takes me forever to do it doesn't mean I'm not gonna do it, because I really like how it looks. I will probably cut back on some of it, though, through the course of the animatic, just simply because it's just a lot to remember. Okay, I don't know how to draw that arm going backwards, so we'll just come back to that later. Whoa, what is that? Fold, there we go. I think a lot of the original animation actually took the movement of the apron away. I don't know how I want to bring that back, because at a point where I could just go back and draw it in. But it would unfortunately just be another piece to remember. So I'll see how I feel at the end of this if I want to actually add it back into the story. There we go. Oh, almost forgot. We need a little hair tuft for Clay at the top. Number 11. Nope, we can't forget our door. So you can kind of actually see the shape now of the background piece. So this should be 12. He's almost off camera. Just a little bit more. And something that actually surprises me about this character, I know I talk about him a lot, but something that surprises me about the character as well as the world of Ivar is just how many people actually consist in this story. I don't know how many of them will actually still be there by the actual first comic, but I don't know, it's just kind of weird. It's like one of those... Do those even have a name? I don't know if those have a name. But like when you create an OC, but then you create an entire world around it. Yeah, Clay had that effect, where he wasn't just a character I made for a story, and even if he started out that way, he just slowly developed into a world that was lived and breathed in. Perhaps a bit too much, as there's a lot of cast members. Not just amongst our villains, but some of the characters I haven't even mentioned publicly, because I'm not even sure if they'll stay, and they're just mostly minor background characters. Some of them having influence in other stories, and others not going to have any influence at all. They're just kind of there to fill in a background. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a lot of characters in a story. I actually really enjoy when there's a bunch of characters. I think the problem lies not in the amount of characters, but in how they're used. Like I just said about some of the members in Ivar, there's a few of them that aren't necessarily a part of any major story. One of them doesn't have a name right now, but she is the current owner of this cafe that Clay is running through. She doesn't play any role in the story, but she's there because she does have a speaking line. It's those kind of characters that kind of confuse me. Do we need them? Do we not need them? I don't think you should have multiple main characters. But I think sometimes it's alright to have side characters and minor background characters, so long as they're not all on screen at once. Let's use Clay's boss again, the lady that runs this cafe. I probably wouldn't draw any attention to her if it wasn't necessary. She would just sit in the background, just someone for us to look at, and not have a whole story dedicated to it. I think when you try and have multiple stories dedicated at the same time to a character, it gets busy and distracting and can be a little overwhelming. There is a way to do it well, though, and that would be to give moments in, like, let's use Ivar, for example. Ivar is episodical, where there's one episode about this character, and the episode 2 or 3 can be about someone entirely different. I think in that context, it's easier to have a story with a lot of characters. Because that way, you can dedicate one episode solely... Is he even in this shot? Oh no, it's empty. Yeah, we don't need this one. But yeah, then you can dedicate your time solely to working on that character and give him or her freedom in the next episode and so forth. Okay, so this piece is originally not supposed to be here, but I'm going to add it in so that we can see what the thing looks like. Because this background isn't its official background. I mean, it is, but it's been edited in. What I'm originally going to do, this shot is much wider, and it's much, much bigger. Why? Because this is going to be moving. We're actually going to have the background move in its final design. Actually, hold on. Let me grab a new one. I think it needs to be a little bigger. There we go. Yeah, but this whole shot is going to move, and for an example of how this is supposed to work with cameras, is if you have an object that's going to move in your scene, like this camera's going to go this way, I would always make the background bigger than it needs to be. That way, the camera will have room to move without accidentally clipping and showing the background. Let's get rid of our door. This is frame 1 through 13. Let's see how they look. He's coming through the door. He slides, his arm slowly gets pressed into the other door because it's going to fall down. And he's going to turn. Then from the turn, he's going to run the other way out of the screen. Okay, there is a bit more of give in this frame, so I think I'm going to draw in the rest of his sleeve. Hope it kind of blocks out the missing piece. Now, which way is his arm going? It's going back, so it'd be just an elbow. That would explain why it's cut off like that. It's meant to be like just an elbow. Oh, there we go. One more time. Slowly comes to the door. Slides to a stop. He's turning. And he's making his way off screen. Now, unfortunately, we can't test the camera and see if it's working while I'm on stream, because that would require leaving the app that I'm currently using. So we're just going to move on to the color stage, and I'll check the camera stuff later. Now, I'm actually unsure. What color should Clay be as he's entering the building? Because he's in the yellow light. Let's start from the top, I think, because I know this part is supposed to be blue. Okay, so why do the colors matter? Well, I think one reason why they matter in this particular instance is because I'm trying to convey an emotion. And to do this, I chose two polar opposite colors. I'll show them. There's this orange bit up here, and then kind of this orange-yellow bit. And then there's this blue bit down here. Ignore the one at the X. These are opposite colors to each other on a harmony wheel. And so see, this is the blue, this is the yellow. These colors are to represent two sides of Clay. The blue being his normal life, and the gold being a life he wish he had. And not only is it great for atmospheric effect, but it also adds to the inside of the building. I can easily make a contrast between inside and out by using the two colors. This is my first time actually animating with full color in a while. Most of the time I don't do animatics other than anything but black and white. For one, it's easier, and two, it's easier to give the audience an impression about how a character should feel, because a grayscale is universally understood. Dark can be sad, anger, like sadness, anger, or even betrayal. It could just be representing night, spookiness, stuff like that. Whereas some other colors, like blue and gold, have feelings. But to get across to your audience that they don't mean what they might think it means is a whole matter in itself. I tried to keep it pretty neutral by choosing gold, as, you know, gold is typically associated with happiness, but it's not just happiness that I'm trying to convey, it's almost dreamlike. So that would rely more on your storytelling abilities. Yeah, don't be afraid to use color. I think it's really fun to just add a little pop to an animation by giving it something different to look at than just black and white. That's why I'm having so much trouble on this door, because he's outside, but he's going to be going inside. I don't want the color shift to be so dramatic that it's obvious. Maybe we'll just deal with that when we get there. Now this might be kind of hard to see. I'm used to the color difference, so it's a little easier for me to see, but what I'm just doing is filling in the gaps where I know there's nothing there, but I like to add a bit of color to it anyway, just in the off case that my prop, such as the table in the foreground, doesn't take up as much space as I thought it did. So by adding this extra layer on the outside, you'll give yourself room to make mistakes and it not be as obvious. And I'm also going to renumber real quick. For whatever reason, the app I'm using is called Procreate for Art and Drawing. And for whatever reason, it does not save the layer number once you move down into another layer. Clay's head's probably a bit too big here. I might fix it, I might not. I'll have to compare it to the frames before and after, I think. There we go. Might add a bit more leeway to this leg. Yeah, let's make it just a little longer, just in case the table isn't there. I used to care a lot about staying within the lines when I did this quick paint bucket trick, where I would just do a quick line in the back. I would always try and be perfect, but nowadays I'm just kind of, I let it bleed a little bit if I want, just so I can get the line finished. At the end of the day, it's an Animatic. They're not meant to look super polished. I'm already going against that rule to do this, so I think it's okay to be a little messy with the art. There we go. I think I just figured out what I want to do with the door as well. Because one thing I did do with the previous frame is after doing the blue base, I would move to using a gold highlight, and it kind of helps to blend the colors. I'm wondering if I paint everything blue and then use more of the gold in the light, perhaps I could make a transition between the two frames. Hopefully I'll get a chance to show that, so that makes more sense. Honestly, sometimes I think I sound like a crazy person when I talk about art. Just so many wild, strange terms, as well as my infinite, unnecessary knowledge about my own stories and my own way I draw things. Well, you know, I seem to really enjoy these though, so maybe there's something to them. I always did like art streams. Not only is it interesting just to see the process of someone art draw, but it's also just interesting to hear them blab. Genuine, I think, would be a good word. They sound genuine. Also, in the world of AI, it's nice to see real people drawing. Whoops, that's too far out the line. I don't mind a little bit of crossover with the line and the paint, but I don't want it to be all the way. I'm actually working on new mini comics for the Ivar universe. I actually really would like to do one of Wolkas of the Stone. And they're my other story. Wolkas of the Stone, though, I always found it a little trickier to draw, despite the fact that they're based off wolves and cats, which were some of the first creatures I ever learned how to draw. I don't know if it's the fur, the detail in its background, because they're in a forest and it isn't as consistent as human-made structures like a cafe building. But I don't know. I just sometimes wonder about making a mini short about them, because the Ivar ones will be... They'll probably come out the same day I get them a personal website, but we'll see. But they're a good way to explore a concept of a story without doing a lot of dedication to something that's going to take you 5 years to do. Can't tell if my dog wants out. He's just kind of flopping on the bed. But yeah, I've always wanted to explore the Wolkas of the Stone universe in some shape or fashion. I'm still riding on that idea about making a book or something, like a mini short. Maybe a tiny novella. Just writing's hard. It takes a lot longer than it looks. I can see why it's tempting to come over to the art spectrum to actually see your work. But art takes a long time too, especially when you take it seriously. I don't know what a Wolkas of the Stone short would even be about. It would either be about the main story, or it'd just be something silly. That's another thing. Ivar was always just easier in the sense that it was based off a cartoon series. Each episode is about something different, or about a different character. Where Wolkas of the Stone is actually based off more... I don't want to say it was based off Warrior Cats, but I think part of it was. Just in the idea that it's a continuous series with the same characters, but following a plot. Not just a bunch of random stuff, so I would probably argue that compared to some of the new stuff, but... Yeah, and Warrior Cats during its heyday. When it was... Oh wow, now looking back, that was a really long time ago. I think I'm getting old. Okay, so we are at the door. We are going to paint them blue. Because perhaps with the gold highlight, we can actually get away with this. I think exploring maybe Shaba or Syria's backstory would be interesting. I actually had a little series once on the shorts on YouTube about Shaba and Syria. And I really do like those characters. Maybe they'll be the first Wolkas of the Stone mini short. I don't know where I'd put it though. I suppose I could just find myself a writing version of social media. Is that a thing? Writer's social media? Like where you can post mini stories? Or even books? Alright, let's address the elephant in the room while we still have time. Yes, I've seen the last episode of Digital Circus. No, I am not inviting a bunch of arguments in the comments or even right now over whether or not it was good. I enjoyed it. And I have my own opinions on some of the structure and the way it was written, but overall, it is just really strange to see that series go. I watched it when it first came out as the pilot, and that was 3 years ago. Actually, around the same time Ivar was slowly coming together. Disregarding some of the controversy and the thoughts over the series, it held a special place to me because when I watch a show or anything that involves a long runtime, like say you're reading a comic and the creator's been working on this for a long time, part of you grows with it. And I think that's what happened with the Digital Circus for me. Is when I first watched it, it was a really good show, but as I rewatched it and kept rewatching it, I think I found myself enjoying it more and more, as well as learning some things about storytelling from it. Because Goosework, the creator of the Digital Circus, when not pressed and demanded to create by their audience, they are a really, really good creator. And that's something I truly believe in. The writing is phenomenal, and I took a lot from what I've seen in the show and kind of analyzed it and learned it. It's just something I love to do. I love watching people create things, whether it's big platforms or big industries, or even small indies shows and animations. Because it's just entertaining as well as educational. We can learn from each other no matter what professional level or non-existent professional level we're at. I'm not a professional. Not at all. But I love to learn from others at my same level of creation, as well as learning from those that are better than me. Yeah, my final thoughts, it was pretty good. Some places I would change or rework, but other than that, I think part of it was about its intention, not inherently about enjoyment, if that makes sense. Because we're not going to love every story we hear. Sometimes it's just about the message, and maybe we're not ready to hear the message. Okay, so the door is going to need to be colored, but I want to see real quick if my idea is going to work. So let's test that while we still got time on stream. We're going to take our shadow, and we're going to make a really lazy outline. Probably won't keep it, but this is just to see if my idea over the window or door, will work. Okay, so it's just going to be a faint outline on the outside of his body. Okay, he's flying through the door. Don't forget his leg. Okay, so that's our line art. Now let's grab the gold, which I'm going to use the furthest one, because weirdly enough, the deeper the color, the more yellow it is. I don't know why, but like the deeper orangey yellow colors you use, it just looks more gold. Gonna select this layer and oh yeah, that's gonna work. See how the transition from kind of this peach to a purple? That's what we want. I want to see that transition as we move into this artwork. And now I think I'll actually clean up the... No, I can't actually do it because I need to color the doors first. So we'll come back and redo that. Let's grab our base color again and get back to the doors. I actually forgot that these needed color. I specifically designed the background without the doors so that I would do this, and I still forgot. I mean, what can you do? We'll probably have to clean up that edge a little bit, because I don't want it going over on top of the original line art. I didn't really think about that when I made the layers separate. So it just means we'll have to be very careful. There we go. That will have to do. I am going to clean up the edge just a little bit. There. And then down to door number 2. Actually, if I just got out the drawing tool, would that be easier? Kinda. You still have to be careful, though, about the line. Oh yeah, that works a lot better. Just, erasing is tricky. Yeah, it should make the doors a lot easier now. It does seem, though, we've reached the end of our stream time. Honestly, I needed just this moment to not only work, but to kind of unwind and just draw again. Not think too hard about it. Remember, if you're ever experiencing moments of anger, frustration, overworking, or thinking you're not good enough, or thinking everything you make is just never enough, you're not alone. I think every artist struggles in some shape or form with this concept, and it's not something that inherently goes away, but you can learn to manage it. And in my case, it's just remember why you started drawing in the first place. I wanted to make the story of Ivar not only because I felt as if I had something to share, but because I love the story. It's one of the reasons why I struggled in the last few days over art, is because I just didn't feel as if I was creating for me anymore. So always just take a moment to remember that. Take a moment to appreciate not only your work, and that it does matter, but also to create for you again. At the end of the day, that's what it's going to be for. Even if no one sees it, you made it. This is what we got done today in the stream. Just a quick animation of Clay running away from the door of the cafe off screen. And that is good enough. Having something is better than not having anything at all for the lack of trying. So thank you for watching the stream. I hope to see you in the next one. It will probably be not next Friday, but the Friday after that. But until then, keep making stories, and I'll see you in the next stream.